For the first time in modern history, the mathematical foundation of the American dream has shifted. According to recent data from the Federal Reserve, while the average retirement balance for those over 65 has nominally increased, the actual purchasing power of those funds has eroded by nearly 22% since 2021. In 2026, $1 million portfolio no longer represents a life of leisure. For many, it has become a countdown to a zero balance. The rules you were told to follow 30 years ago, back in 1996, are no longer functioning in a world of persistent service inflation and skyrocketing insurance premiums. James is 66 years old and lives in a quiet suburb of Raleigh, North Carolina. 3 years ago, when he stepped away from his career as a logistics manager, his spreadsheet looked perfect. He had $1.2 million in a diversified 401k, a modest pension, and his home was nearly paid off. He had calculated his life based on the traditional 4% withdrawal rule. On paper, James was a success story. He was the person the financial magazines pointed to as the model of preparation. But standing in a grocery store aisle today, James feels a cold, familiar tightening in his chest. He is looking at a receipt for 3 bags of groceries that just cost him $212. He grips the thin paper tightly, feeling the texture of a reality that his 2019 financial plan never accounted for. It isn't just the eggs or the milk. It's the fact that his homeowner's insurance premium just doubled for the second year in a row due to regional climate adjustments. It's the fact that his property tax assessment just jumped 30% to fund local infrastructure. James did everything right, yet he is watching his liquid reserves evaporate 3 times faster than his advisor's software predicted. But that is only part of the story. The real danger isn't just that things are more expensive, it's that the very structure of retirement accounts is ill-equipped for the 2026 economic landscape. For decades, the financial industry sold a dream based on a low-inflation, high-growth environment that simply does not exist anymore. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the cost of essential services, healthcare, utilities, and property maintenance has far outpaced the headline inflation numbers that dictate Social Security cost of living adjustments. The math gets worse when you look at the safe withdrawal rate. For years, the 4% rule was the gold standard. The idea was simple: if you took out 4% of your portfolio every year, adjusted for inflation, your money would last 30 years. But in 2026, researchers are warning that for many, a safe withdrawal rate might now be as low as 2.8%. Why? Because the sequence of returns risk, the danger of a market dip occurring early in your retirement, is now compounded by a cost of living floor that is much higher than it was for previous generations. James realizes this as he sits at his mahogany desk at 3 in the morning, the blue light of his laptop screen reflecting off his glasses. He's looking at his bank portal. He sees the withdrawals. He sees the maintenance fees on his managed account. He realizes that even in a year where the S&P 500 is up, his actual net worth is stagnant because his expenses are rising faster than his dividends. He feels a sense of labor value betrayal. He gave 40 years to a system that promised him a finish line, only to find that the finish line has been moved 10 miles further down the road. The next statistic changes the entire picture. According to a 2026 report from the Employee Benefit Research Institute, nearly 48% of American households headed by someone aged 55 to 64 are projected to run out of money in retirement if they maintain their current lifestyle. This isn't just happening to people with small savings. It is happening to the millionaire next door types like James, who are being squeezed by the silver tsunami of rising medical deductibles and the hidden costs of aging in place. Most people never see this coming because they are looking at the wrong numbers. They look at their total balance, but they don't look at the net after inflation and tax reality. If James wants to withdraw $50,000 today to cover his basic needs, he has to sell more shares of his mutual funds than he did 5 years ago to get the same amount of purchasing power. Every time he does that, he reduces the engine of his portfolio, making it harder for the account to recover when the market eventually turns. And then the math gets even more aggressive. In 2026, we are seeing a phenomenon called escrow shock. Thousands of retirees who thought they had fixed-rate mortgages are finding their monthly payments increasing by $500 or $1,000 because their property taxes and insurance premiums are bundled into that payment. For someone on a fixed income, a $1,000 monthly jump is catastrophic. It's the difference between a comfortable life and a state of perpetual financial anxiety. This is where retirement math starts to break. The danger becomes visible when you realize that most 401k plans were never designed to be a person's sole source of income. They were designed as a supplement to a pension and Social Security. But with pensions virtually extinct in the private sector and Social Security facing a projected shortfall that could lead to benefit reductions by the early 2030s, the 401k is carrying a weight it was never meant to hold. What happened next to James is a story being repeated in suburbs across the country. He had to make a choice. Does he sell the house he spent 20 years paying off? Or does he cut back on the very things that make retirement worth living, traveling to see his grandkids, or maintaining his health through quality nutrition? James chose to look for a solution, but he found that the traditional advice of just buy bonds was actually hurting him. In a high inflation environment, traditional bonds can often lose real value, acting as a wasting asset rather than a safety net. But here is the absolute deepest risk that most people miss: the nuclear reveal of the 2026 economy. The system is no longer incentivized to help you preserve wealth, it is incentivized to keep your capital in play where it can be taxed and fee extracted. The 401k structure itself forces you to take required minimum distributions starting at age 73 or 75, regardless of whether the market is up or down. This means the government effectively forces you to liquidate your assets at a time when you might need them most, just so they can collect the deferred tax revenue. It is a structural trap that treats your life savings as a future tax windfall for the state. Knowing this, James realized he couldn't just sit and watch his accounts dwindle. He needed a defense. He needed a strategy that accounted for the 2026 reality, not a 1996 fantasy. The first step for anyone in this position is a rigorous budget stress test. James sat down and separated his survival costs from his lifestyle costs. He realized that his survival costs, taxes, insurance, and healthcare were the ones growing at 10% a year, while his lifestyle costs were manageable. The second step is a tax bucket diversification. James began looking into Roth conversions. By paying the taxes now, while rates are still historically low compared to where they may go to fund national debt, he could protect his future withdrawals from being eaten by higher tax brackets later. The third step was a property tax appeal. James discovered that his local municipality had overvalued his home based on a temporary neighborhood spike. By filing a formal appeal, he saved $4,000 a year, money that stayed in his portfolio rather than going to the county. He also looked into HSA maximization. For those still working or with remaining eligibility, the health savings account is the only triple tax advantage tool left. It allows you to pay for those rising 2026 medical costs with completely tax-free dollars. Finally, James decided to delay his Social Security until age 70. Every year he waits, his benefit increases by 8%, providing a guaranteed, inflation-adjusted floor that no private investment can match. As James stands by his mailbox in the humid North Carolina evening, holding a newly adjusted insurance statement, he doesn't feel the same panic he did at the grocery store. He has a plan. He knows the system is tilted against him, but he also knows how to navigate the tilt. He understands that the old rules are gone, and that survival in 2026 requires a more active, more aggressive approach to wealth defense. The reality of the modern era is that the path to a secure retirement is narrower than it has ever been. The structural pressures of inflation, taxation, and rising service costs are real, and they are not going away. But awareness is the first step toward protection. By acknowledging that your retirement account might not last as long as you think, you gain the power to change the outcome before the clock runs out. The goal was never to become rich. The goal was to remain independent. And in a world where everything is becoming more expensive, independence may be the most valuable asset left. If you found this analysis helpful and want to stay informed on how to protect your wealth in this changing economy, please subscribe to the channel. We are dedicated to providing the data and strategies you need to defend your future. Disclaimer: this is not financial advice. The strategies discussed in this documentary are for educational and entertainment purposes only. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Always consult with a qualified financial advisor or tax professional before making significant investment decisions.